Hello, everybody. This is Stephanie and Chelsea, and we are the co-founders of CS Planners. And I'm so excited because today we are talking about overcoming fear. And how many of you out there right now struggle with overcoming fear? If you're anything like me, that is something, honestly, I'm still working on today. And I feel like for me, it's a process that I'm always continuously working on, because when you start facing your fears, the whole point of it is you're really going outside of your comfort zone, right? So, and obviously your comfort zone is comfortable. So anything outside of that is scary sometimes. And I will say that Chelsea, you've done an incredible job with helping me in the process of making me face my fears. And I feel like 2020, I've talked about this before and for other videos too, but I know 2020 was such a huge transformation for me. And I feel like, Chelsea, you've been incredible with helping me face my fears and do it anyway. So Chelsea, tell us a little bit about, like, what kind of advice would you give for those people out there that are struggling right now with facing their fears?
I think I've learned from a young age that there's so much satisfaction from facing your fear. So I have two older sisters, and they're 5 and 10 years older than me. And when you're the youngest, always have that FOMO. So I remember going to water parks and seeing them jump off those massive cliffs that if it was just me, absolutely not. But because they did it, it was
Yeah,
like, well, now I
I
have
have to
to
do
do that.
it.
So I remember in those moments where they would be doing these things that at my age I was way too scared. Again, they're 5 and 10 years older than me,
Yeah.
but because they did it, I would do it. And I remember always doing it and feeling so satisfied and so proud of myself. Even roller coasters, I see them and they're so scary, but that adrenaline rush you get once you do it is so satisfying.
That's very true. The feeling you get after, you're like, I was afraid of this and I accomplished it. I'm like, yes, I can keep going. That is 100% true.
So I feel like for me it's always like chasing that adrenaline rush. And so from a young age I've learned that if something scares you, you're always going to be so proud of yourself that you've actually done it. And I feel like that's where a lot of my stories have come from, or those things that I was so nervous about doing, but when I did it, I actually had something I could share with people, where if not, it's just like, well, I saw it, I wanted to do it, but it scared me. And then it's just like, well, that's boring. And I feel like there was a period of my life where I didn't really have anything that scared me. I was working in an office job, everything was status quo. I showed up, worked my 9 to 5, everything was simple. And then I got to a point where I started getting bored. And I remember when I first started, there was that adrenaline of learning and trying new things and seeing if things will work. But then once you figure out that routine and pattern, for me, it's just like, well, what am I doing now? Like, how am I pushing myself without burning myself out? And I always had that struggle. So even when you came, it was just like, let's do this. That terrified me. And I remember thinking, you know what? I can either, know that scares me and run away from it, or I take that leap and jump off that cliff like I have so many other times and just, see what happens.
It is so true. I was thinking about that on my run this morning, actually. And I feel like, because I feel like it relates right now to a lot of our audience out there, because a lot of people, they do want to start a business. A lot of you, and if you're not at the point where you're starting a business, maybe a new job, maybe you're unemployed and you're looking for a new job. And I feel like a lot of it is right now career related, just based on how many of you I've connected with over the past couple of weeks. And I've really thought about it. And if you are starting a business and you are taking that leap for something, it is incredibly scary. And if you're like me, who, like, you have all these anxious thoughts going on in your head that, you shouldn't really believe because they're just feeding you misinformation. And I feel like, and I've been there, I know what it feels like, oh, you won't succeed, you won't do all these things. When in reality, I'm going to use business for an example, because that's to take the leap of faith to, quit our full-time jobs, to run our business full time. That's a huge leap. And I know many of you out there are looking to do that as well. And I know it's scary, it's terrifying. But when you really think about it, if you take that leap to go into your business, you have no other option but to succeed. You like really, your business only fails if you let it fail, if you stop trying. That's what I feel like is so important. That's what I've thought of from the day one beginning, right? So even if things shift, not necessarily a failure, you just keep going. So in situations like that, when you're thinking, okay, I want to take this leap to go to my business, know that, yeah, it is scary. And I know what it feels like to have all those anxious thoughts to say, you know what, you're not going to make it. What if you become a failure? Sometimes your anxious thoughts can feed you the outrageous things. And those out there with anxiety know what I'm talking about. You know, like, if only I didn't eat today, I wouldn't have this. Like, your anxiety, don't let that take over. And I know it's hard, but if you take that leap of faith and you really start analyzing your thoughts, that's what Chelsea have been incredible with helping. I feel like a huge part of overcoming fear was realizing that, Chelsea, you've done an incredible job with helping me in terms of like really analyzing your thoughts to know how to process, so that way you can start overcoming your fears, overcoming all those. And I feel like when you take the leap, if you think about it, whatever you're trying to do to take that leap, focus on the end result and know that, yeah, you might have some challenges or tests along the way. Absolutely. But at the same time, you can get through any of those challenges, and all the rewards are way bigger than all the other stuff. If you keep focusing on that, then you have no other option but to succeed.
And I think the human mind is really incredible, because ultimately your brain, and the reason why you have those fear instincts is that your subconscious is trying to protect you. And it doesn't even need to be something scary. Even if it's for me to be like, okay, I should go for a run today. And your mind, the back of your mind is talking you out of it. It's because your body's trying to protect you. And of course, even going for a run isn't something that's going to hurt me, but my brain will find any little reason to explain why I shouldn't and why it's better for me. And it's so important. That's why I always talk about, think about what those thoughts are and think if they're actually rational thoughts, because they're subconscious thoughts. So sometimes you don't even realize what they're actually telling you until you start listening to them.
I know, and I want to give you an outrageous example. And I'm telling you, it is outrageous, but I believed it. It was something I actually thought of. And I remember after my son passed away, I had many anxious thoughts, but this is like the most outrageous one was, if I didn't eat that day, maybe he would still be here right now. And I'm like,
Wow.
you know what? This is in my internal process. I'm like, you know what? I think you're right. Like, maybe I shouldn't have eaten as much that day. And then you just go down this rabbit hole of like, and then all of a sudden that one small thought can just like suck you in, and you believe it until you step away from that, until you back up. And Chelsea, you've done incredible work. That's what analyzing your thoughts comes in handy. When you think about it, you step back from yourself a little bit and say, wait, no, I'm human. I'm allowed to eat. Like, chances are whatever, like, the worst case scenario isn't always going to happen, or, what, this would have happened regardless. Like, you really start thinking about it and really start processing each of those thoughts. And when you take that step back, sometimes you realize all my anxiety was it was feeding me information that was not true. And I feel like, and I got sucked into it very easily. And I feel like, but when you start analyzing your thoughts, when you realize, you can be like, hey, then that way, and anytime I have any of those like anxious thoughts coming through, I'm like, hey, nope, that's not right. I know this. I have this. I got this. I can take on any test or challenge that comes my way. And when you really start mastering the mind in that way, it's incredible, because I feel like that goes hand in hand with overcoming fear, because when you overcome fear, it's often related, there's some type of nervousness, anxiety, maybe, even if you aren't like have anxiety necessarily, but still it makes you feel that like uncomfortable feeling of facing your fear. But when you step back and you realize and you start analyzing your thoughts, and start feeding yourself positive information, because a lot of people, are so negative. They're so hard on themselves. They're way harder. You're probably way harder on yourself than a lot of other people could be around you. So you need to feed yourself those positive information, those positive things about you that, you can and you will do this.
And that's something that's super important, is that it has to come from within. So, um, you and I went and did a haunted house one time. I had to believe that I was actually able to do it, because if not, and people just pushed me in, I would have had a massive panic attack and would
Yeah.
have broken down in the middle of the haunted house. But it has to come from within. You have to believe that it is possible. And sometimes it's great to have those cheerleaders, because they can help you get to that mindset where you can believe in yourself. But ultimately, you need to make sure you're mentally prepared, because there are different levels of life. So the first thing is the first I picture them like a target. So the bullseye is your comfort zone. That's the place
Yeah.
where everyone wants to be. And then when you go outside of that, it's
Mhm.
unknown territory, but I call that the growth zone. So once you leave that comfort zone and you enter that growth zone, you're learning new things. And when you learn new things, you realize that there's more to life that you've never known. And you know that there's more information out there than your little bubble, that little comfort zone that you thought, which allows you to start exploring even more. And then right outside of there is that panic zone. And if you go from your comfort zone immediately to your panic zone, you're not going to grow, and it's going to be a negative experience. But if you start focusing on your own personal mindset, you don't go right to that panic zone, you go into that growth zone. And for me, I actually I've been a person where I've never really showed emotions. I don't even know how to show when I'm excited sometimes. Like Steph, it's like I
I
don't know how to show
know.
different emotions. I'm always at this like
Yeah.
neutral zone.
That is
And I've just
oh,
I just filmed a video that's going to be released on Saturday. And for me, that was probably the most vulnerable I've been in my entire life, even to you, even to my partner, because I filmed myself talking about one of the insecurities I have that I don't even bring it up to anyone else, because at the same time it's like, well, if I don't talk about it, no one's going to notice it and it'll be okay. But I mentioned it in this video, and even while I was going through editing it, I was like, do I take this out? But this is the part where I'm just like, if I do this, then I'm going to be so happy that I'm listening to my own advice. I'm doing something that scares me the most and coming out and talking about it. And there's another thing that I have told people, but I've processed it. I processed that information myself, and I'm okay with it. But as I was filming it, I break down in tears. And in this video, I'm showing, I'm sure even some people in my family haven't seen me cry in years. But if they watch this, you're gonna see me break down. And again, I talked to you. I'm like, I was thinking about cutting it out, but I feel like I need to just let it happen. And that for me, because I actually talked to you, Steph, a few days ago, of being like, I'm bored. I have nothing that's challenging me. Like, no one's pushing me to like be better. When I filmed this and I was questioning it, immediately I went into those thoughts of, but I wanted a challenge. I needed to be pushed beyond my comfort zone. I needed to go into that growth zone, because I felt I was crawling back or creating a new comfort zone. And by doing this, it was just like, it's terrifying. And I've showed you a bit of it.
I was just gonna say I've seen a snippet of it. I'm excited to see the rest, to be honest. And I feel like the part that I did see, honestly, it's like out of this world. It's just like it just sucks you in to want to watch more. And I feel like it's incredible. I feel like you take it to a whole nother level. And I feel like it's true. This was a huge like thing for you to like this challenge that you wanted, but you've done incredible with it. Like when I was watching it, I was just like, oh my, like,
And they're true, genuine emotions. It
yeah,
isn't like
yeah.
I, I
Mhm.
I can't even have myself cry on an everyday basis. So when I'm breaking down to tears, these are true, genuine emotions that I'm feeling in real time. And like that's why I was like, it's terrifying, because even when I'm talking about, I preface it before by saying I'm okay with it. I've processed that information. But I think I was so used to keeping everything to myself and keeping myself calm. But now I'm opening myself up to invite the entire world or whoever listens to it. And that scares me a bit, that it brought out more of those emotions, which is terrifying. But I think emotions are good. They're supposed to feel emotions.
Exactly. We're all human. And on top of that, sometimes it's good because Chelsea, you have an incredible mind in terms of how everything works. And I feel like you've really trained my mind to be like, to help me deal with like my anxiety and all that. And I feel like in situations like that, and when you show like you're more like vulnerable, and then how you deal with those emotions when you talk about them more, when you, instead of just keeping them in, you share them with the world, you're really doing us all a favor. You're like, I know you are the type of person that does keep everything in, but the fact that you're even starting to switch it a little bit to be like, you know what, these are insecurities, these are what I'm feeling, but this is how I'm dealing with it, this is how I process it. You doing that, you are helping us all out. And I know I'm going to learn so much about it, because every time I watch one of your videos, it's that motivation that I feel like I really needed on how to help. I mean, you've entirely changed. You've like went there. Like for me, this is like me speaking. I'm not like medical professional. So if anybody dealing with anxiety out there, please like make sure you get help. But based on my experience, therapy did not work for me. But within the last year, I would say I have significantly improved like my anxiety. And I feel like it's from you, like, because you've really helped me process like my thoughts and all that. So I feel like you doing that, I feel like I'm excited. So thank you for sharing that.
Well, thank you for those kind words. But essentially what we're trying to say is that in order for you to grow, you need to step outside of your comfort zone. It's okay to be afraid, but take that fear and go after it anyway. And by chasing those fears and stepping out of your comfort zone, you keep growing, and ultimately you keep going in life. I feel like I'm kind of an adrenaline junkie when I'm talking about it, because it's just like I was bored. I had nothing challenging me. I had nothing to get that adrenaline pumping, and I was missing that feeling. And I know that's a scary feeling for a lot, but even for some, being in front of camera, that's a terrifying thing. So I always think, what is your goal and what scares you about it, and what can you do to help yourself overcome those goals? So if being in front of camera and talking live is something that scares you, maybe you just film yourself privately in your own room talking to a camera, and then you work your way up to those things. So I feel like in general, when you're trying to overcome a fear, acknowledge what the fear actually is. And if it's something, one, rational, and if it's something that is going to put you into the panic zone, then figure out the steps you need to take in order for you to overcome those fears. And I've had phobias. I've had a phobia my entire life. And I remember that day where I overcame it, but it's because I realized what was more important to me. And we can talk about that at another time of like phobias.
We should talk about, that's a really good idea. Phobias can be a whole nother topic for those out there right now.
Yeah. Phobias and getting over those, it's not an easy process.
I know, but you've also helped me get over a lot of my phobias, so that'll be a whole nother. So stay tuned. Make sure that you also subscribe to our channel, because that's how you can see amazing content with how to get over your phobias, how we did. So amazing content like that. And Chelsea, this weekend, I believe that you're releasing Saturday that we're releasing that amazing video. I'm so excited to check that out.
I'm nervous, but we're going with it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. We hope we're here every Wednesday, so make sure you join us. And thank you for your support.